These oil wells are stuck in the past. And for over 100 years now, this has been the most lucrative job in this remote part of Indonesia, where the land has been ruined by toxic leaks. Workers risk their lives to extract the little that's left.
Ya gini, saya kan masih sehat, dia kan tercepit dikit ini, tercepit besi sama besi.
But they don't even own that oil. They're forced to sell to the state company, which locals say barely pays them enough to get by.
Ya takut nggak takut, namanya orang kepepet.
So why do these toxic old wells still exist? And how did thousands of people end up trapped working in them? Pani learned to extract oil when he was just 19. Now he is teaching his nephew.
Jadi sifatnya terpaksa. Kalau berhenti menambang, dihijaukan, nanti kehidupan keluarga berkurang.
Many of the 700 oil wells near his village in East Java were built by the Dutch in the late 1800s. Nowadays, locals own most of them, but only about 200 still work.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Pani always prays with his colleagues before starting his day.
Selamat kerja, ya!
The basic tools they rely on are improvised and rustic. Like this engine they've removed from an old dump truck. They have to step on gas and brake pedals to dip and lift this pipe that goes in. It's called a baler. It has little holes in the side to let oil in and out. They need enough rope to lower the baler all the way down into the oil reserve. At this location, the crude is found about 1,000 feet below, a depth almost equal to the height of Indonesia's tallest building. When the baler hits the bottom, the holes open up inside, letting oil in. Then, when the rope starts tugging up, the holes close, trapping the oil inside the tube. Pani uses this heavy iron rod to guide the baler down. Sometimes accidents happen.
Ya gini, saya kan masih sehat, dia kan tercepit dikit ini. Tercepit besi sama besi.
The whole process is messy. Pani says he sometimes wears a mask to protect himself from the liquid that sprays out. But what he fears most is a possible explosion. The old equipment can overheat and catch fire. With all this oil around, an open flame can quickly spark an inferno. In June, a fire at another well in Sumatra killed 4 workers. It's also hard to maintain these wells over time. They're too narrow and far too deep for people to crawl in and fix from inside.
Dia alati kan sudah nggak kena itu, seperti pipa yang di dalam putus, untuk meluruskan susah. Nah, akhir-akhirnya harus membuat lagi di sampingnya akhirnya gitu. Tadi
sometimes mud clogs up the well and prevents the baler from reaching the oil.
Jadi sepertinya buntu gitu.
The extracted oil runs off into these pools. In its crude form, it's mixed with mud and water. The oil floats to the top in a matter of minutes, and workers scoop it out. Pani's nephew, Joko Mulyono, helps. They use a vacuum to transfer the oil onto the car. About 200 years ago, before these oil wells existed, crude naturally oozed out of the ground here. Locals gathered small amounts to light lamps and make medicine. But in 1887, the Dutch, who colonized Indonesia, set up a large-scale drilling operation. Their oil company, Royal Dutch, managed many wells and refineries in East Java, and brought in workers who were paid low wages to help work for them. As demand for oil boomed around the world, drilling in Indonesia expanded too, and this land became unrecognizable. The Dutch left after Indonesia gained independence in 1945. But the oil that had leaked from the wells had already polluted the surrounding earth and water, making farming, the work that had sustained locals long before these wells existed, much harder. Extracting oil became the most lucrative work, but there wasn't nearly as much as before. When Pani started this job in 2004, they could draw up to 900 gallons from this well in a day. Now it takes him 1 week to get 55 gallons. There's more underground, but the well is too shallow to reach it, and Pani doesn't have the machinery to drill deeper.
Tapi kalau buat harta benda yang kaya raya enggak bisa, karena keluarnya itu kan itu kejar-kejaran sama tetangga, teman.
Even though workers own the land, the state-owned company Pertamina possesses the right to all the oil underground. So, by law, workers have to sell their oil to the company through a local government enterprise. But they often make more money selling it to off-the-radar refineries instead, where Pani can make 2 times what Pertamina would pay. Latest estimates from 2014 found that the state company was losing nearly $11 million annually to workers who sell their oil independently. Even after selling on the black market, workers still only make about $12 a week, which is not a lot, even in this part of Indonesia. That's why most of the workers bring lunch from home and share it with the others.
Sayur daun singkong. Cocok ini.
Pani pays his nephew Joko an additional $6 weekly to drive the oil to the refinery. That's become its own profession.
Kalau sekitar sini ya peduli sih Mbak sebenarnya. Tapi mau gimana lagi kalau di sini kan memang lokasi minyak penambangan. Mau nggak mau ya kita harus mengikutin gitu.
Joko has been at it for 16 years now. He used to make around 10 trips a day, each for a different well owner. But that's dropped down to just 4 or 5 on a busy day.
Ya kadang ya 3 atau 4, kadang ya sama sekali nggak ada. Tergantung minyak dari sumurnya keluarnya banyak atau dikit.
Pani's neighbor Jainuri processes the oil at this artisanal refinery using traditional techniques. He works 13-hour days, carrying 20-pound containers filled with crude up and down these hills. He dumps them into these 60-gallon drums. First, Jainuri lights this underground furnace. He'll use it to heat the crude in this drum. He fills it halfway to give it space to boil. It has to reach at least 570 degrees Fahrenheit before it starts evaporating, which is key to refining it. The vapor comes up through these pipes, which are cooled with water. That turns the vapor back into a liquid.
Bagian itulah mengeluarkan minyak dari pipa itu. Lama. Prosesnya lama.
They bring that refined fuel to the boiler and heat it once more, until it evaporates back through these pipes. Jainuri repeats this process 3 or 4 times to get different types of fuel, like gasoline and diesel.
Itu tradisi zaman dahulu. Zaman orang-orang tua mbah-mbah kami. Begini terus biar rakyat kita bisa makan.
All day long, workers here are breathing these fumes, a combination of nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide, which can cause cancer and brain damage. And if the gases get trapped underground, everything could explode.
Sebenarnya bahaya, cuma gimana lagi, soalnya adanya ya itu.
And an entire day's work only fetches about 1 drum of diesel. That's about enough to fill a car 3 times. Refineries are also required to sell their oil to Pertamina, but many sell at small black markets like this one. Locals buy oil for $2.27 per gallon. That's double what Pertamina would pay for it, although the price fluctuates based on global oil prices. The quality of the artisanal oil is inferior, so locals mostly use it to fuel the engines in their wells. Some also use it in their cars, because the nearest gas station is 60 miles away. That trip would cost them more in gas than they make in a day. Indonesia has enough oil reserves underground to power the entire country for at least 4 years. Still, it imports about half of the oil it consumes. And these artisanal workers aren't allowed to dig new wells on their own land. They could get all their oil extraction rights revoked. Instead, they have to allow large companies to drill on their property, a law the country passed in 2001 to boost foreign investment and ramp up oil drilling. That year, ExxonMobil discovered an oil field nearby and soon signed on to help Pertamina develop it, buying out 3,000 small landowners first. The plant started extracting in 2008 and now produces about 200,000 barrels annually, about a quarter of the country's oil output. But locals say what they really need from the government is funding for better machinery, so they can develop their fields themselves.
Tidak mempunyai cita-cita kok. Pemerintah membantu, saya tidak mengharapkan dan tidak meminta.
So workers find ways to make do on their own, because they say they have to. They keep digging more wells like these to tap as many shallow reserves as they can.
Ya dibilang ilegal ya ilegal, dibilang enggak ya enggak. Soalnya ini sudah turun-menurun, tinggalan Belanda zaman dahulu. Soalnya zaman Belanda yang ngusir orang-orang sini, harapannya ya harus tetap begini, biar dikelola rakyat.
According to some estimates, output from illegally dug wells is outpacing production at the legal ones by about 10 barrels a day. Meanwhile, locals feel trapped in work that's damaged their land, and now seems like their only option for a stable income.
Kalau hati saya menggarap sumur yang seperti bebas seperti ini, hati saya tidak enak. Tidak enak, Mbak. Sebenarnya loh itu. Juga mengganggu apa-apa. Tapi berhubung kekuatan keluarga saya juga membutuhkan hasil, saya tetap ikut mengambil hasil dari minyak. Jadi sifatnya terpaksa gitu.
Pani's family grew mangoes here for generations. But for the last few years, his crops have kept dying.
Loh, kalau saya sedih itu menyayangkan ini, gundul semua ini. Saya sedih sebenarnya. Tapi menghidupkan kan nggak bisa karena itu. Bagaimana kalau menyelesaikan kalau nggak ditangani pemerintah?
Still, he's grateful for every drop of oil he can get. And that it's made it possible for his daughter to go to school and to have a better life than he did.
Kalau uang dari sumur ini kan sekarang kecil, Bu. Buat biaya anak sekolah pun masih mencari, masih kurang.